Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be upgrading the turblower. That's right, the Szechuan Sender,
The Wu-Tang Hurley Boy, the
Wu-Tang War Whistle,
the Beijing Blowhole.
the Mongolian Rod Muncher,
Oh, dude, I am out.
the Pyongyang Push Rod Pretzeler.
Oh, that's my
But
favorite too.
anyway, we're going to be putting in this Taterbilt HE 351.
63, 68, I guess he calls it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got Meyer here, so you know we're going to get it done pretty quick.
So you know it's gonna make some purr, because that's what we can do. Is we can make purr on these HE 351s. That's what we do.
So you guys saw in our last video where we ran out on the stock turbo right around 555 horsepower with the cold air intake upgrade. So now we're just gonna see, we have the fuel, we have the hard parts to support a head gasket failure. So we're ready to bolt on some power.
Yeah, dude, this thing's gonna make some with that.
So just so you guys are clear, this was a Facebook find. This is a used turbo. As you could see, it suffered probably a shaft failure. The original owner provided me with a receipt. This is a rebuilt Taterbilt 63 millimeter.
Definitely has new parts in there.
So I had Meyer look it over. Pretty simple. Intake's gonna come out, and Meyer is gonna show us how to do this without pulling the manifold. Full disclosure, every time I've pulled a turbo on a 3rd gen, I've always just pulled the manifold off, but Meyer thinks we could do it without it, so I'm down for a little less hardware. So Meyer's down there messing around with the turbolower. We got the cold air intake out. Now I'm gonna go ahead, get this intercooler pipe removed. Pretty simple, clamp there. And we'll probably pull this clamp up front here and get that out of the way. So we got our intercooler pipe out of the way. We had some failure, not gonna lie. These boots are smoked, but good thing I work at power driven diesel. We'll just go grab a set off the shelf.
Okay guys, so just show you how I do it from below. Just get a bunch of extensions and either a stubby socket or a wobble socket. They're 15s, but you can get them. It generally takes a lot to break them loose, but once you get her done, then they just come right out pretty easy.
And we gotta disconnect the drain line as well, right, Mark?
I just pull out of the block generally.
Okay, sounds good. So hopefully you guys can see it. You guys can see the drain bolts. Those are 8mm heads.
Those are actually 10mm head, but yeah. And then 7/16 on the exhaust V-bank clamp.
Sounds good. Okay, so Meyer got the 2 insides. I broke these outside ones loose. Obviously, merged the short straw. And then last but not least, there is the wastegate plug, which is right here. You got to disconnect that. Obviously, we need to disconnect the oil feed line. I'm going to disconnect that from the filter housing. It is a little bit easier, in my opinion, than trying to get a wrench back there. All right, last step. Mur got the oil drain line disconnected. Got the oil feed line, again, just disconnected off the filter. He is taking off the exhaust clamp to the elbow, right there. And we did replace that when we did the exhaust, so that's a pretty cool mod. And then there's just a one bolt up here one stud up here holding it steady. That way it doesn't fall on him. So once you get that last nut, you gotta pull the drain out of the way just a skosh so it'll drop down, and then up and out. Not gonna lie, that is much easier. Nice work. Here we have the old stock, again, bone stock compressor that we did all of our dyno testing on. Here is our new Taterbilt, brand used. Meyer, why don't you tell me a little bit about these, since I don't actually know the dimensions of a stock HE 351.
So, stock HE 351 is a 60 Malmer compressor. This Taterbilt is a 63 Malmer compressor. On the back side, the turbine, so the stock HE 351 turbine is a 58 Malmer. So it's actually smaller than the compressor, which is kind of odd for turbo sizing. And then on Taterbilts, that is a 67 Malmer compressor, or I guess he calls it a 68, but I think it's the same H1C turbine.
If you could see here, you see how there's no machining, and see the gap there in the wastegate, and then you come over here, they almost port that into the wastegate flap, and then they machine some of this out as well to do it. Yes, I'm aware it's covered in oil.
Yeah, it's brand new in there. Just never cleaned off the turbine. But
And
yeah,
then
so
same housing, 9 centimeter. And why do we love this turbo, Mur?
because it spools pretty much like stock, but it gives you a very noticeable upgrade in horse per. That big turbine, I think, does a big job, part in that, and then the little bigger compressor helps suck in a little bit more air.
So you have this shoddy that is a HE351 HT4B. What's your
correct.
best power numbers to date?
To date, I think it's like 1136. I think is my.
So again, really capable turbo.
That turbine, like I guess one big thing that I like about a shoddy is that at 1136 horsepower, it's doing like just about 60 pounds of boost. So you just know that that turbine is flowing great. So I think that 67 turbine does a really good job at getting the exhaust out of the motor.
And full disclosure, this is a HE341 cover on this turbo. That's what Taterbuilt uses because he runs this actuator, this aftermarket wastegate actuator. Again, just I know some of you guys will probably pick it up. I just wanted to show you guys exactly what was different. First thing we're gonna do, since this turbo looks like it's in questionable condition, I think the previous owner might have just let it sit uncovered for a while. We're gonna go ahead and we're going to blow out the Sam, Dick, and Harry. Alright, that way we know we're starting fresh. And then there was a bunch of schmag in the old So this turbo, as you can see, has eaten some things. These chips aren't going to be a huge deal, and you can see here it has ate the cover a little bit, which is probably where it leaked. Again, when you guys are checking your turbos, journal bearing turbos are going to have this side-to-side play. That is normal. Realistically, if you wanted to check that when the oil pressure was going through, that would be the proper way to check this. What really matters is the in and out play, and this one has almost none. Again, when it starts to get that in and out play, you have worn through that thrust bearing, and once it has worn through, it gives it room to start going radially outward. And then something I see a lot of guys struggle with, normally I do this when it's on the truck, the drain hooked up, but to get a good video, what I do is I put this oil squirter, I get it kind of primed here, there we go, and I give it a couple good pumps, and then you spin the wheel like so. This is what they mean by pre-lubing the turbo. Again, it's a little messy because we're doing it on the bench, but whether you buy a brand new turbo or a used turbo that you're not sure the condition of, I would recommend pre-lubing it. It's as simple as that, couple squirts. If you're in a bind, the gear oil bottles, these little teats, you can snip it off. It will thread onto a quart size oil bottle, and you can jam this in here, squirt it in as well. That'll prevent a mess. But I do, as we've said before, these little oil cans from Harbor Freight, big time savers. They are not a lot of money. Now that we got this pre-lubed and we're making a mess all over the box, let's go ahead and get it put in. We have our 2 studs ready to go, and it's pretty much the reverse of installation. Reverse of removal. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and get this dropped in. You kind of go in a little sideways, then you're gonna spin it up like so. Then you crawl your fat butt up in here. And you get it slid on. And then I'm just gonna put the one nut on the front. That's really easy to get to. And you kind of have it pinched on the studs so it can't drop down on you. Now she's in. Meyer is gonna go ahead and get the turbo drain hooked up. That's pretty easy. If you want, you guys could use a little dab of silicone to hold the gasket from moving. I don't like to do that, but if you're doing it by yourself and you're really struggling, just a couple of small dabs by the bolt holes, it'll hold it on there. That way you can get it all started. All right, so this might happen to some of you guys. The oil feed line in the turbo, this portion that threads into the turbo, and then this line goes on it, seized together. Couldn't get it apart, not a big deal. You're gonna take 2 Vibrant M12 by 1.5 to -4 ANs, and then we'll just copy this line out of stainless AN. We'll use a straight here, a 90 here. As you guys can see, we already got the adapter in the turbo. adapter in the oil filter housing, and we'll make a new line. Again, not a big deal, but something you guys should be ready for, especially if your turbo looks like as crusty as mine was. So as you guys can see here, we got Murr going hard on a 15mm snap-on impact universal. That was what he meant by all the extensions. And then I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up these two nuts on my side. Again, Murr kind of drew the short end of that straw, but just get an applause for the man. There is probably a torque spec for these. We just go until they're really tight. These are not the nuts you want coming loose. Then you have a drive pressure leak, which
until they strip minus a quarter turn.
Yeah, so if you guys call in and you have like high EGTs, a lot of black smoke, low boost, one of the common issues can be these exhaust manifold gaskets here, and it can also be the turbine housing to exhaust manifold gasket here. Easiest way to spot it, the nice part about diesels is they leave a little evidence. There'll be a black soot stain kind of where the gasket blew out, and then you'll need to replace it. We're gonna leave the factory manifold. I was debating putting a steed on. I just really think for this project on the budget we're on, I could spend that money elsewhere a little bit better. So here we have Murr in the wild struggle busting with his down.
Oh my god!
Whoa, G-rated.
Oh, sorry. This blasting, unfortunate existence. Oh, hey, please don't know.
So we got our manifold, the turbine housing nuts tight. And now you got to get the clamp on, which, as you can see, Murr is struggling.
Dude, it's good. It's all good.
So once you get that, we'll tighten up the clamp. Then we'll go ahead and get the oil feed buttoned up, and then also the intercooler piping. So we have our drain line. Again, I use the Dash 490, Dash 4 straight. We use Vibrant in this shop. Again, they just really good quality, good product. So I like to use their lines when I can. And then over here, we have our power driven diesel 3rd gen boot kit. These are the factory clamps, factory boots, as you can see, pretty wimpy. These are the power driven diesel boots, much stronger. And then they come with the better spring clamps as well. You get a lot more thread engagement with this style nut than you do with the little Nylox here. So again, shout out to them for having one in stock. We'll go ahead and put that on with our intercooler pipe. All right, so now we got our power driven diesel boot kit on. Went on pretty nicely. Got our oil feed, downpipes hooked up. Realistically, all we got is the cold air intake. That goes on just the way it came off. We'll get that knocked out, and then it's time for first fire. As you guys can hear, this thing just rips. I mean, this is like 15-20 pounds of boost. It just gets it. Not much spool up difference between the stock one and this. I mean, I'm just having a blast. It just sounds awesome. Gets you some windows down action. It's freezing cold, but I'm in such a good mood. Doesn't even matter. Just listen to this kitty purr. All All right, yes, I know I need a haircut, so I put the hat on. I'm sure I'll get a couple comments, just not enough time. So we wrapped up the HE351 install. Again, this is a Taterbilt 6368 that we got secondhand off Facebook Marketplace. I don't know how long it'll last behind my lead foot, but I intend to find out. We are going to put this on the dyno, see what we improved on. Again, remember our number is like 556 horsepower. It'll be interesting to see what a bigger turbine, bigger compressor wheel will do. Obviously, we're going to have our friends over at Vanist Performance retune this truck. But man, it sounds good. I love that big turbine, tight housing sound, as you guys heard in there. I mean, it just sounds immaculate. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate all the feedback, guys, and I'm going to keep pumping these out. I'm having a really good time. Until next time.